Hi everyone, welcome to Legends and Lore episode 6. And I'm Anna Meyer, and with me, as usual, is my co host.
I'm Mike Bridges. I run the blog Greyhawkery, as you know. This week, though, we have an extra guest, Joe
Yes,
Block from Greyhawk Grognard.
welcome,
Hey,
Joy.
everybody.
Yep, awesome that you can make it. We were scheduled to have you last week, but that kind of got in trouble. So it's awesome to have you here this week. So welcome
Thanks
so
for
much.
having me.
Yep,
For just a little context here, Joe's been in the Greyhawk community longer than me,
longer
and I
than me
suspect
too.
longer
I'm
than
I'm,
him.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, been
Yeah,
forever
yeah.
in the Greyhawk community. Yep. So please
So,
tell us a little bit of what you're
yes,
doing. Yep.
please.
Of what I'm doing,
And have been doing. Yep.
have been doing.
And yep.
Well, let's see. I've been a fan of Greyhawk since the first Dungeon Master's Guide came out, and they had
Mm-hmm.
all those references to the setting in the artifacts and relics. So every one of my homebrew campaigns had a barony of Lum and stuff like that. So I've been a fan of the setting since before it was published.
Oh, cool.
Um,
Nice.
yeah, I was active on the old AOL boards. I had an article published in Dragon way back when in the '90s
Was that
about
the 90s? Couldn't remember if that what year that was.
yeah, I don't remember the exact year, but it was See the Pomarge and Die was my
Yes,
claim to fame
that's a
back
good
in
one.
back in the
Yep,
day.
that's a good one. Yep.
About 10 years ago, I started running the Greyhawk Grognard blog, where I talk about this world of Greyhawk, about gaming in general, RPGs, movies, sometimes war games, anything that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So,
yours is a lot more broad of a
Yeah,
blog than mine. I'm very like laser focused on one thing, and
well, it's still
I
you're
go in
wider than
spurts.
me. I'm just maps, so I'm even more
well,
laser
yeah,
focused.
that's true.
Yeah, but before we go on the discussion, I just need to make sure with the people in chat that they can actually hear us well, and so we're not too loud or too low
Right.
or anything. So,
Audio, video check, everyone.
yep. See if we get any feedback. Yep, no one has complained so far, so I guess we're good.
That's true.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, Bavix. We shall
Perfect.
proceed.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Let's see. So we brought Joe on to obviously talk about some of his projects and whatnot, but I want to get out of the way real quick. I don't know who all in chat is up on Greyhawk authors, but I think earlier this week was it? Carl Sargent died.
Well, he died probably some time ago, but we got the
We got the
confirmation this
news,
week, from
right?
what I understand. It was back in September, or October, or
Yeah, it
something.
Oh,
was a
So
oh,
yep,
month or two
really?
ago, and yeah, we're just finding out now.
yep, mm-hmm,
Okay.
yep. So that will be a topic that we will dig into, and now we have another even bigger expert than us here. So yep. So this is good. But oh, please go on, Mike. Yep.
No. That's what I was going to say.
Mm-hmm.
Carl Sargent. We just got the news that he died, and
Yep.
uh, the Sargent era, which I would say encompasses second edition Greyhawk,
Yes.
correct?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
From the Ashes. There we
Yep.
are.
Yep. The
Um,
the renewal of Greyhawk in many ways.
Yes.
very underrated, very
Mm-hmm.
prolific.
Yep.
I don't think there's any author, since him that has had as much without maybe Gary Holian.
No, well, he did some
You don't
awesome
think?
stuff, but he. Shall we start with talking a little bit
Let's
about? Yeah.
let's do that.
Yep.
Yeah, because that's actually a really good springboard because
Yeah.
I agree with you, Mike. I think Carl Sargent gets a really short shrift in the Greyhawk community because a lot of people really have a bad taste in their mouth about From the Ashes still, because they see it as kind of like that was the thing that moved Greyhawk away from Gary Gygax, and it was
This-
Lorraine's way of getting at him, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
ruin the setting.
Yeah.
but
But
he was not a hack. Yeah,
was that
I said, but he wasn't a hack. He was
No,
good.
absolutely.
Yep.
And a lot of people might not realize he wrote not just D&D stuff. He was writing for FASA. He wrote for Games Workshop,
Yep.
or a bunch of other smaller companies. He wrote a ton of stuff.
Yep. Yep.
He was also one of the authors of something that everybody loves, which predated the From the Ashes stuff. He was one of the 3 authors of the City of Greyhawk, which, pretty much defined that part of the setting, which is a vital part of the setting to this day. Yep. And, you can't get away from his influence even before the Greyhawk Wars, From the Ashes stuff. He made his mark earlier than that. And when you compare the changes in the Greyhawk setting that happened from the Gold Box to From the Ashes, the changes over the course of, let's see, it was 576 to 585, so 9 years. The changes that you see in the 9-year period are really not all that out of line in terms of this kingdom falls, this kingdom is conquered by this one, when you compare it to medieval European history. Over the course of a 9-year span, the changes that you see in the setting really aren't that tremendous compared to what you see in Europe, in the Middle Ages. So
Bavix in chat says he also did Night Below. I never got that one.
Yes, he did.
Correct.
It's a great campaign setting. So
he also did one of my favorite second edition era blue books. He did the Monstrous Mythology.
Yes, and that's one of the best books ever published for D&D. It's awesome.
I use it to this day.
Yeah, me too. I just loved it. I totally.
It's one of my recent acquisitions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. And when we talked about when to get into Greyhawk, that was one of the books that I mentioned, and I realized now when I went through the what Carl Sargent published, almost everything that he published was on my list to get. So I'm much in awe. And Carl Sargent was the one that made Greyhawk feel that's something I really cherish, so to speak. With Gary Gygax led the foundation. He built the foundation of Greyhawk, but Carl Sargent, he expanded and made it expanded into the setting with Marklands, all the books that I really loved about Greyhawk. One of the things I noticed about From the Ashes is that it's really not all that big a departure from what Gygax was doing with the setting. Yep.
If you read those, State of the Flaness, Flaness, I don't know what you call it, articles in Dragon in the 80s, where he'd have these army lists and, this is what's going on in the kingdoms and stuff.
Yeah.
If you read those, there is a straight trajectory from what he was writing in those articles straight into the Greyhawk Wars and From the Ashes.
Yeah.
So really not that big a departure.
Yeah, and I also get the sense that From the Ashes was written as a love letter to the setting, because I don't get the feel that it was like commercial pressure from the top saying you need to tear up things so we can produce new products, because it was like it was so much love for the setting, and like you said, for he picked up the mantle and read through all the materials. So I love it. The only thing I really hate about From the Ashes was that he killed off Horn Society. That was one of my favorite villains, and he killed them off. So, but
he didn't do that.
He kind of he dispersed them a bit, and they're out there.
No, that happened in the Greyhawk Wars box set.
That's true.
Players part, that was Zeb Cook.
Yeah. That's okay. So I can blame him for it. Awesome.
Right, you can't blame Sargent for that.
Oh, that's awesome. Carl Sargent has a complete clean bill of health, which is sad to say now when he unfortunately passed away. But all his publications, in my opinion, you kind of took the only bad thing that I've. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Yep. Thank you, Joe. Yep.
Sarah Sinnis has pretty much summed it up there. Gygax set up the conflicts. Carl, got to write the aftermath.
Yeah, he executed it. Yeah, yep, executed the story, and yep. Oh, good. Thank you, baby. Someone else who has some hierarchy love here. So, yep. That's one of my favorite.
And before
villains.
we get off the Carl Sargent wagon, I also have this.
Yes.
Oh, you have the Yeah, because he
He's
had
a psychologist. This is
exactly
before Greyhawk.
parapsychology. Yeah, and it's in my when I read through the Wikipedia article about Carl Sargent, which I can't vouch for how true it is, but it seems like he had in some ways a even better fantasy writing career, less question, because his scientific record seems to be a bit patchy, at least that he got into
Yeah.
conflict with someone.
Yeah.
But I guess that comes with the nature of parapsychology. But he also got a doctorate at Cambridge, which is the only one who got from in parapsychology.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can.
Yeah, I don't even know where I got that book. It's not like I went out looking for it. Someone like gave that to me.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yep.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So yeah, so he seems to be one of these. But on the other hand, there's a lot of people in the RPG community that have all sorts of interesting histories and whatnot getting into it. So it's
Mhm.
yeah, so it's kind of it's fun with just to see, and he really made such an awesome contribution to the setting. I just love his book, especially the Marklands and I Use the Evil and even the Undying. Those are the best books that ever written, I think, in many ways to
Yeah,
about
he
the setting.
detailed stuff at a regional level.
Mhm.
Like,
Yep, and especially from doing the maps, because for me they're like a gold mine to dig through all the stuff in there. So yeah.
That's where you get the
oh, that's my
Yep.
favorite.
Yep.
these beauties.
Yep. hmm
I need a new one. Mine's starting, the cover's starting to fall off.
I wrapped mine in plastic, so it's
Really?
transparent plastic. I did that with a lot of stuff. So maybe it's not good if I want to sell it, but it keeps them in looking good for longer. So yep, especially the paperbacks.
Bavix is asking if Warduke is a hierarch. Anyone want to take that one?
I've seen, I read through this a couple of months ago, and
Yeah.
isn't he one of these figures that have kind of had an appearance in many different settings, and
Yeah.
it was a piece of art that was used in
Like an
many different.
iconic.
Yeah, exactly. It was used as
Well, he
it
was
was an
one of those
iconic.
action figures. He was
Yep.
originally an action figure,
Yeah,
like
mhm,
one of the
yep.
6-inch ones. And
He was in the
and
cartoon
people just
also.
kind of latched onto him as an interesting figure.
Yep,
Mhm.
yep. He had a
Boba Fett,
multi-story.
he put him everywhere.
Yep. So
And then Paizo made him official in a issue of Dungeon magazine.
okay. Yep. So we can't really. Well, we can make him part of because I've used that image as for Hierarch in my game. So in my
No, I
campaign,
mean,
definitely he
They
is.
made him, yeah, they made him part of the Horn Society in that
Cool.
issue.
Yep.
He's,
Yep.
which I think is appropriate because weren't most of them like priests and wizards?
They were fighters. They were a whole bunch of
Yeah.
evil power players going
I think
together and
perfect.
yeah. And that's interesting. We need to have an episode where we talk about the different villains, one for each major villains, and then I
How about
think
for
that.
season 2, Anna?
Oh
Yeah.
yes, exactly, for season 2, and then we have to have So we have to have the Brotherhood for one episode, I use for one
Actually,
episode, and the Hierarchs
One of
for
my
one episode.
one of my favorite villains is part of the Horn Society.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah,
we could do that.
and then we can have old historic villains like Vecna and stuff. So we can that's a whole season. We can talk villains like for 10 episodes and have one each. That sounds
Yeah,
like
I always got the impression that Gygax was setting up Wastry the Hopping Prophet for something really big, and he never
Okay.
got an opportunity
Uh-huh.
to use it.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's such a fascinating villain, you
Yeah.
know?
mhm.
But
And-
you only have that one bath time for the Hopping Prophet
Yeah.
adventure
yeah.
in the Secret Greyhawk.
Yeah.
And
He's
I always thought
teased.
he was too interesting a character not to really use in a big
Yeah.
way.
What about
And
Cuse?
never
That thankfully the Paizo when they and Eric Mona and stuff when they took over, they made him that one of the master villains for one of their I think it was their first adventure path. The Cuse.
Really?
Wasn't that the first one when they
I never played those. You mean the Shackled City? And all that?
not the
I never
Shackled
played
City, the first one that now you have to talk and I'll see if I can dig
yeah.
in. But it made the in some of the when you played, and it was the Age of Worms. That was the Q's. Yes.
But that's not Greyhawk.
Age of Worms?
Oh yeah, Age
Yeah.
of Worms is Greyhawk. Yep. mhm.
You could put it in Greyhawk.
Yes, exactly.
Uh,
They're,
Put it
you
anywhere.
can, yeah, it's one of these you can that they have a little
What do you
sidebar
mean?
saying you put it here, put it here, put it here. So
Right.
yeah. So
But
I
it's
took
not like canonical Greyhawk.
no,
you
it's
know.
not. But it's one of these things that have notes for. So I put places from there according to the guidelines in Dungeon on my map, so to speak. But you can also play them in other. Yeah, it's like a bit like Keep of the Borderlands, meaning in Greyhawk you can put it here, in Forgotten Realms you can put it there, and yeah. So it's, I guess they have to reuse stuff. So yeah. But now we've beaten around the bush a little bit. Now I'm so curious to I've heard so many cool things of Joe, what you're up to. You're fidging around with fifth editions. The old Grognard and is doing new stuff.
Yeah. And I'm the one who's leading the charge for 5th edition.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about my 5e stuff. I've gone through and basically created a pair of books, one for DMs, one for players, that gives backgrounds, different character paths. They have different wizard schools. Any way you can flesh out the 5th edition rules for Greyhawk, I've done that.
Okay.
Nice. So there are things for bards and clerics and thieves and.
Did you use any other official books as a template?
They have different names for each character class, so it's kind of there's wizard schools, there's paladin oaths, there's cleric, so it's just they don't have one generic name for it. But I've done all those for Greyhawk. Also, I've taken a bunch of the stuff in this, which I think is another very unappreciated book, and I basically converted everything in this book to 5th edition.
Whoa!
Wow!
All the spells,
everything.
The monsters, the clerical stuff, but it's really the cleric stuff that is, to my mind, the most exciting stuff, because in 5th edition you have divine domains. So there's like a healing domain and a life domain. Right.
I don't have to do that anymore.
What's that?
No, I'm just joking. I said, I don't have to do that anymore.
So what I've done is I've made a divine domain, a unique divine domain for every deity in Greyhawk.
Nice.
Oh, that's cool.
Every single one has its own divine domain.
Why
so
did you go
you want to be a cleric of Alona, you can take Alona's domain, or you can take, animal or nature, whatever it is.
So have you brought up the old bardic stuff tradition, or have you kept the bard as it is?
I actually made a new bardic circle, which is the circle of balance, because that's one of the big themes in Gygax's Greyhawk.
Yeah.
So, like in the novels, they have actually a faction called the Balance, where you have the high-level druids and the bards are working for them and stuff. So whenever I could, I tried to sneak in as much of the old Gygaxian 1st edition feel of the stuff as I could, and then I just put in the mechanics in the 5th edition mode. So yes, there is actually the 1st edition bard stuff. Kind of sort of makes its way as well as it could.
Yeah.
And also all the clerics get to have, different divine abilities, which is another thing that harkens back to 1st edition. Because in 1st edition, we have, a cleric of this deity has a bonus to this, and a cleric of Hieronius can use swords. That was all coming at the tail end of Gygax's well, not even then. It was coming in gold box. We see those little tweaks to the clerics. And I just kind of took that and pushed the accelerator down to the floor, and now every cleric, for every deity has its own thing. Will it ever come out? That
now comes the big question. What's your take on DM's Guild for open up for Greyhawk things?
Yeah, Nebbiolo is asking.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was going to say Nebbiolo in the chat is asking, are you afraid if Wizards of the Coast greenlights the setting that they'll come up with their own book before you can release anything you got?
Well, they'd be hard pressed to come out with it before I could get mine, because the day they open it up, I can have my thing ready to go, because it's completely written. But in terms of that, if you look at something like the Player's Guide to Ravnica, or the one they did for Forgotten Realms, I guess they did a little thing. it's really not comprehensive at all. You know, it's got a couple of things here and a couple of things there. My book is literally, the two books together are literally about 4 inches thick when you print them out.
Damn.
It is as comprehensive as I could physically make it. And in that respect, you know, if they, let's say they do cover a dozen deities, I'll just take those out and I'll give you all the rest.
Right.
I've got, there's backgrounds, there's all kinds of, there's one I'm really a favorite of mine, of the background is called the Martinet. And Anna, I thought of you because it's one of the backgrounds that you can get if you come from the Horn Society. And a Martinet is basically a military officer who's very strutting and expects to be expects to be honored and respected just because he's an officer, and he has all these really obnoxious powers and things like that. And it struck me that that's the kind of officer that the Horn Society would hire. It was somebody who was much more upset, much more interested in his position.
The old Grey Kingdom, the Horde Society, and maybe the Pale will be kind of militaristic and stuff that way too. Yep.
Exactly. And there's knightly orders. There's
so you have like the Knight of the Heart and Shield and
exactly the Knights of the Heart, the Shield. There's 2 different ones from the Great Kingdom. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you can
that's awesome.
There. Yep. And I just took as much as I could, and I 5e-ified it. So,
that's great. So, what have you done with the Druid? Have you? I haven't played 5e much enough with Druid, so I don't know. But I was just curious because that was one of these. Yeah.
The beautiful thing about Druids is in the 5th edition rules they have a circle of the Druids have circles. There's a circle of the moon.
Oh, okay.
But in Greyhawk there are 2 moons.
Oh.
So now there is a circle of Luna and a circle of Selene.
Ooh, okay.
So the one from the 5e rules, I'm calling the circle of Luna, and then I also created a circle of Selene to make it much more setting specific.
Yep. Oh, that's fantastic. Yep.
Yeah, of course.
So whenever I could, I tried to do that stuff. I tried to use the 5e mechanics to make it have much more feel for all the stuff that's been layered onto Greyhawk over the years, especially trending to the early stuff whenever I could.
Yeah.
Wicked.
This is so cool. Yep. So this is something that will, if they open it up for DM's Guild, that means that it will be available as PDF there, I guess. And
correct.
Yeah. How are you thinking about print on demand and stuff like that too, if possible?
They don't allow print on demand for DM's Guild.
Okay, they don't. Okay, yeah.
Unless you're them.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so any other interesting projects? Now we need to
Yes, actually, the other big thing I'm working on right now is actually a free thing. It's a series of articles I'm doing on the Backloonish.
Yes, I've seen the first one. Awesome work.
Yeah, I've got 2 already out there, and I'm working on the 3rd now. It started off, I wanted to make a complete Backloonish pantheon.
Yeah.
Because they've got like 4 or 5 deities.
They have like a quarter, an embryo of a pantheon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're all neutral.
Yeah.
Which struck me as weird. And I thought that too many people after the fact kind of took the fact that all the Backloonish gods are neutral, and they kind of made that like canon that they have to be neutral. I went in a completely opposite direction.
Yep, that's good.
I did a lot of research into pre-Islamic Arabian paganism.
Oh, that's good.
Use that as the inspiration for a Backloonish pantheon. In the same way that the Greyhawk deities that we know, the Iridian pantheon, the Sul pantheon, the Flan pantheon, are kind of sort of based on European paganism, pre-Christian paganism.
Yeah.
I want to make these pre-Islamic pagan in the same kind of way.
Yeah.
So I'm not taking names per se, but I'm taking
ideas
and feel and some of the way they were perceived. And one of the things of course, once I had a pantheon written up, I had to have a special kind of cleric for them, because you can't just be a regular cleric, because regular clerics are based on medieval Christian priests and warrior priests and so forth. So I had to then make a new class. and which is called the Rashaw. And then I was saying to myself, well, I mean, if I've got clerics and this, and some of the clerics spells are invoking new kind of monsters. Well, now I'm going to make some monsters, and well, I might as well make a gazetteer for the rest of the countries.
You make a
doesn't have to do anything.
Yeah, you made a subsetting, so to speak. Yeah, you made a McClooney subsetting to the Greyhawk.
And what I'm doing is I'm putting it out on my blog as a series of kind of faux magazine articles for Dragon magazine.
Oh yeah, and you formatted them just like the old style Dragon magazine from the day.
They look like they came out of Dragon magazine from the 80s.
Yeah, you even put in ads for cool things in there. That was the kind of the coolest touch ever, so to speak. That's kind of awesome.
I wanted to make it look like somebody photocopied these out of a magazine.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then you can put it in a binder, like I did. You know.
I was thinking that I should ask you if I can put an ad in there for the next one or something like that.
Those are actually all actual ads from the 80s.
Oh, okay. So damn, I'm too late then. Way too late.
I wanted to make at first I wanted to make my own ads.
Yeah.
And it was just too much work. But I'm very excited about that because it's just kind of snowballed on its own, and it's something that's that I'm just giving away. If you want it, take it. If you want to use it, go ahead.
Yeah.
And eventually, I'm going to be doing a map. For the rest of the Backloonish Basin, which I know is close to your heart.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm going to base that on my Beyond the Flanus maps that I did years ago.
Will they be based on the same style? You would use the same...
Nexus?
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yep. I'm going to kind of redo them so that if you wanted to... Because the maps I did a few years ago, and for people who aren't familiar, I actually did a series of maps for the rest of the continent of Oerk, covering everything in a Darlene-esque style.
Exactly. They're great. Yep. They're the best work ever done for the rest of Earth, so to speak, so far. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Coming from you, that's high praise.
No, but it is, and I plan to outdo you, and that's something down the line here. So yeah, and I have some news about that later on, but we wait for that later on. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the problem with my maps that I did a few years ago is that they don't exactly line up with the Darlene maps. They're off by like a hex or two. And
but skip those hexes a little bit. I did because I realized I can't match the hexes perfectly. So yeah.
No, I figured out how.
Okay.
I figured out the settings in Hexographer. It took me a weekend.
Yep.
With rulers and everything, but I've actually got all the settings now, and I'm going to redo my maps as I expand back up with these series of articles.
Yep. Then I need to discuss, because I want to use them as a base, just like I used the Darlene map as a base for this, and there's so much room because these continents are so enormous that is so much land of things to fill in. So
mapping.
So we need
one of the cool things is that it actually also includes the 2002 Chainmail game, because that was actually set at the far western tip of Oerk.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I took once I realized that, when I was making my maps, I bought everything I could find for Chainmail, and I plotted all that stuff out, and then it also includes all the stuff from I'm gonna mangle his name, Francois Freudal something. Him, and because he had a setting that was going to be part of Oerth at one point, and it never made it. But if you look at his maps, they kind of line up with things. And if you look at that Dragon Annual 1 map, it kind of uses some of the same names, like the Empire of Lynn.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I smooshed as much of that into it as I could, too.
Yeah.
So, but that's all going to get, eventually, it's all going to get redone, because my long-term goal is to make these series of articles cover everything.
Damn.
The way I'm doing it is I'm approaching it from the standpoint of, how would TSR, if Gygax had stayed, how would TSR have expanded the world of Greyhawk? And what they did, when they were coming out with Unearthed Arcana, for example, they had all these articles in Dragon. You know, they had the Cavalier, they had the Barbarian, the Thief Acrobat, and then a year or two later, they all bundled them together into a book.
Right.
I'm assuming in my hypothetical, project that they would do the same thing for a Backlunish expansion. So this is going to be it'll end up being comprehensive, and then you can imagine that the next year they would have come out with a box set that contained all this material. And then I'm going to do the same thing with Zindia, which is south of the Sea of Dust.
Yep.
And then I'm going to do the same thing with the Celestial Imperium, which is their China. And then I'm going to keep expanding it out, and eventually it'll be, I can guarantee you it's not going to be the way it would have been, absolutely, but it's going to be, if you squint, it'll be an approximation of what it might have been.
Hey, this is a good opportunity to slip in a question. All right, so the first person in chat, Nikara, was asking about, doesn't know much about Greyhawk. And I said, what do you want to talk about? And a Medio Jungle come up. So we know just like the top tip of it is on the maps, and, there's been a little bit detailed and, here and there. And then the bulk of the Medio Jungle is rather undeveloped, I would say.
The map does appear in the Scarlet Brotherhood.
Correct.
They do cover that map in the Scarlet Brotherhood product.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she's zooming in.
Yep.
Here we go.
Here we go.
And I have a better. I can go down and use the better map here. I'll zoom out a little bit here. So
and that was actually my first ever map that I tried to do using hexographer in the Darlene style. I did a text of that Amadeo Jungle art. So I've completely forgotten what the question was, but
no, the question was just talk about the jungle.
About
the segue is, you said you were going to do Zindia, and I figured, well, while you're down there, you probably would cover that a bit too, right?
Yeah, the eastern portion of Zindia, there's something called the Pelolosi Fields or something like that. I forget what the exact name is. And if you scroll down and to the left, you should probably have it on your map.
Yeah, I have a little bit. We have a little bit. I haven't detailed. There's much to be desired, so to speak. So, do we want to go even further west?
Yeah, just a little bit further. Yeah, somewhere in there.
Yeah, and I only have the very, very basics here. It's like
that has the little part south of Zamaclan has a name that's in the map from
there's a lot of stuff here that I didn't even put in here because I realized this is something I need to go back to.
Oh, that's even farther east than I recalled then. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's all the stuff I did.
that's the base. Yeah, that's the base. So we need to look into to more cooperation so I can get the thing done.
Yeah, but the Amadeo Jungle in general, the Olman culture in general, is obviously it's a Mesoamerican style culture. And one of the interesting things I like about the way that a lot of people hate the Dragon Annual 1 map because it's boxy. It's just a big rectangle with triangles on it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you think about it, it gives you some opportunities to juxtapose cultures that in our world had absolutely no contact with each other or very minimal contact with each other. Mm-hmm. And it gives you an opportunity to kind of play with how they might have reacted to one another and dealt with one another.
Yeah.
For example, we have a Mesoamerican culture in the Amadeo Jungle, and just to their southwest, we have a Vedic Indian culture.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
So we get to see and even better, it's kind of a fallen Mesoamerican culture. It's a shadow of its former glory, and you get to see how that was going to interact with a Vedic Indian culture that's on the rise.
Yeah.
So
now
I like the way this gives you those opportunities.
Yeah.
To play with cultures in a way that didn't happen historically.
Yeah. So this is interesting because you know way more than I do about this. So how did the great cataclysm, the invoked devastation and the rain of colorless fire affect these? Were they there and they're still there, so to speak? What happened when
Well,
when
the way I
when
like
the Sewell Empire was there?
right.
How did yeah
Probably not so much for the Omen culture, because the Omen culture, yeah, they were impacted by the waves of refugees from the Sewell Empire
yeah
after the dual cataclysm. But the way I picture it, the Zindian culture, our Vedic Indian culture to the south of the Sea of
yeah
Dust, this is where I this is my own canon. This has nothing to
Right.
do with TSR canon or Wizards canon. This is just me. But in the same way that in our India, there's a theory of the Aryan invasions where lighter skinned people from Central Asia came into northern India and influenced the culture and so forth. It's the
yeah
Aryan invasion theory.
mm-hmm.
You know, I don't care what you think about the theory itself. The fact that the theory exists is grist for the fantasy mill. And
Mm-hmm.
in my Zindia, that is replaced by waves of Sul refugees coming into Zindia
yeah
and influencing the culture there. So the Zindian, for example, the Zindian pantheon is going to have a bunch of Sul gods in it. In just the same way that there are Sul gods in the Flanis that are
yeah
common,
mm-hmm.
they're
yeah
going to be common in Zindia too.
Huh.
And it's kind of a mythological, mytho-historical analog, if you
yeah
will,
yeah
of something that may or may not have happened in our world, but it definitely happened in their world. And again, this is a perfect example of the juxtaposition of two cultures that
mm-hmm.
we didn't see here.
yeah
So you have the Sul culture right next to an Indian culture, and then after the Sul culture is destroyed and refugees start flooding out, how it impacts the Indian culture.
yeah
But wasn't and I ain't disagreeing with any of what you just said, but the Sewell Empire is almost kind of like a hub, though, location wise.
well yeah
So everything
they're very
around it,
yeah
given the age of the Sewell Empire before the Cataclysm, it would have already influenced all that stuff around it,
yeah
right?
and I
Culturally, yes.
yeah
But if you have, it's one thing to have. So, for example, we have Germanic in our world. We have Germanic influences on the Roman Empire because they were next to each other for centuries. They had trade, they had
mm-hmm.
people moving from one to another. But once you saw the Germanic tribes actually coming across the frontiers into the Roman Empire, that instituted a whole nother level of cultural
Physically.
yeah
Okay.
That's the same kind of thing I would see
Right.
in what I'm discussing with Zindia and the Sewell. Yeah, they had they had trade, they had people that would move from one to the other. But then when you see tens of thousands of refugees flooding into Zindia and intermarrying with the people there and so forth, then that's a whole nother quantum level of influence, if that makes sense.
mm-hmm. yeah
Yeah.
So what's your take, Joe, on the now I'm going back into cartographer mode here, thinking did the those cataclysms, they changed the physical shape of the landscape and stuff, because the Sewell Empire, they didn't live in a sea of dust, they lived in that was prosperous habitable area before the cataclysms. So,
Yeah.
so my idea is that through the Raj of Shangal and south, there was before was a river flowing through up from the mountains south, and then there was like some volcano maybe or something that kind of sealed off, so it became a sealed entity with mountains all around, so to speak. Or were the hell furnaces, were they around even during the Sewell
the hell
days?
furnaces were there. The hell furnaces were there, but it's interesting to wonder, were they actually volcanoes?
That's what I was going to say. They were.
Cataclysm?
Yeah, I got the
Was it the
sense that
cataclysm that activated the volcano?
in my take on it is that the hell furnaces became hellish
Right.
as part of the thing, and also in the south there were mountains rising up that actually sealed off the Sewell land from as part of the curse, or the cataclysm was to
Right.
seal it off from outside influence, and the
Yeah, the
mountains are so
Stone
tall.
Empire had to have they had to have ocean contact because they have two
Yeah,
ocean dates.
exactly. And if I look at the geography, I could say that probably had two rivers flowing out, one, maybe even three, flowing out southwest, south, and southeast, so to speak. So there were
Well,
rivers and river valleys and flatlands and so they were like, yeah, it was probably very it's a good it was probably prime real estate before the thing, and there were,
it definitely was, because
yeah,
I forget if it was Gygax talking later or if it's actually in a canonical source, but some description of the Reign of Colorless Fire talks about the fire actually burning hills down.
Hmm.
So even though it's flat now,
yeah,
before the Reign of Colorless Fire, there were hills, there were mountains, there were
yeah,
there
hmm,
was terrain,
yeah,
there was geography,
yeah.
and the Reign of Colorless Fire actually burned the very hills
Yeah,
into dust.
and that's an interesting thing, because they are on a tropical, almost down in the tropics. They are down in the tropics, in what would be the jungle belt, so to speak, close to the tropics. And to me, if I go back, it was interesting. Maybe the land was much higher back then, and that meant that the climate was not tropical. It was kind of Mediterranean, kind of more temperate climate, which meant that it was perfect to live in, and for the Sewell people, because they don't strike me as tropical in their, they
Well,
strike me as
well, Greyhawk in general plays kind of fast and loose with the whole,
yes, exactly, yeah,
tropical, and
yeah, oh
which
yeah,
longitude or
yeah,
latitude is something on.
yeah, oh yeah,
And then
it plays
plays
over,
it
but
away with ocean currents.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have magic. You can always blame magic.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work out with anything else, it works with magic. But you can kind of play with that idea that the Reign of Colorless Fire actually kind of lowered the land and raised some of the mountains around it and stuff. So yeah. But now I'm getting deep into it, because I'm thinking about if I have to go back and should go map, or want to go back and map it like pre-cataclysm, what it would look like.
There was one. Wasn't there an adventure in Dungeon that took place, like it was like a time travel adventure that took
Maybe.
place in the
Yeah.
ancient Thule Imperium? I
Okay.
think there was, and I don't remember which issue it was, but there was one.
Now we'll see if I
Uh,
can did get some
Mike,
stuff
you
from it.
got it off the top of your head?
no, not off completely. No, we covered the Sea of Dust in one of our first episodes,
Yeah.
and on my blog I have a post with different links to different Sea of Dust related stuff. And I want to say it was an Orth journal
Oh, okay.
thing. I
Yep.
don't think
Eh?
it was actually in Dungeon, and it was. But you're right. It was a time travel thing, like Sewell. Shoot, what
Yeah,
was that thing called?
I
Age
don't
of
remember exactly.
Glory.
But now I gotta find it. So
Yeah, you'll find it.
Yep.
Lincoln.
So yep.
Anywho,
Something else that I've been doing.
all right.
Since you opened the door to what projects am I working
Yep.
on? I've been kind of, other than my normal stuff on the blog where I kind of do deep dives into dungeons and stuff, like I most recently I did the Lost Caverns of Sajkanth, and I,
Oh, wow.
kind of did a couple of blog posts about, the history and the layout and all that good stuff. But what I'm also starting to do more of is kind of additions and addenda to old classic D&D modules.
Ooh.
So, for example, in G1, the Steading of the Hill Giant Chief, there's this whole third dungeon level that is mentioned in the text, but it's never described and it's never mapped, and they just say, "Oh, there's nothing down there but bugs and bones, and don't worry about it." I took that and ran with it, and I
Joe's like,
G1.
"You're wrong. I'm going down there."
Yeah, exactly. There's all these sinkholes and there's carrion crawlers coming out of them or whatever. And, I figured there's got to be something more interesting down there, especially since there's a temple to the elder elemental god that's down there. There has to be something going on there. So I took that ball and ran with it.
Ooh.
That's also available on the blog. Can I make puppets playable? Oh, well done. Well done. Yes.
Zing.
I'm not even sure I'm that good. But what I am doing is I'm working on expansions for the Temple of Elemental Evil. Because the way I envision that the T1 through 4 should work is that the players shouldn't even be thinking about the Temple of Elemental Evil when they start. It should just be a bandit hunt. They're coming up, they've been hired by Narwhal or whatever to, hey, we're having a bandit problem on this road, go take them out. And, they find a bunch of scraggly bandits and they take them out, and then that leads them to another band of bandits that's controlling them. And eventually one of them gets to what I call the Watchtower, which is on the border between the gnarly forest and the Sus forest. The temple had a tower erected where they would where the monsters would first come when they were recruiting them. But there's a bunch of bandits there. It has nothing to do with the temple now, but now they're bandits back. And then they go to Hamlet, and then they realize, oh my God, there's, we've been ratted out. There's some conspiracy going on in Verbabank. So they have to go to Verbabank and figure out what's going on there. And then they come back to Hamlet, and then they go to Nulb, and then, now we have to go to Sabanwich because there's something else, and make it a whole big spiral, slowly spiraling in, and then you hit the temple. And I'm trying to do that.
He's just drawing out the suspense.
Right. Plus, the way it's written, there's no earthly reason no earthly way that a party of characters can get high enough level just in Hamlet able to take on the Temple of Elemental Evil.
Unless you want to meat grind it like Tomb of Horrors.
It's yeah, exactly. It's but they give you Uday and Otis, a couple of high level NPCs to bring them through. Yeah, I think they should be high enough level to get in there on their own. And if you start them off slowly and slowly draw them in, that's the way to do it. And
I think that's called power leveling in video game terms.
Yeah. And in a similar vein, I'm doing a couple of expansions to the Dro modules.
Dang.
I'm working on two different modules which are kind of interlinked. The first one I'm calling City of Spiders, and it's basically D4. So once the players get to the Vault of the Dro, and there's all these very arcane things that they have to be able to know in order to go to the next part of the adventure, which, as published, was Q1, but I'll get there in a second. So they have to know, okay, what happens, why do we want to go to the Fane of Lolth? Why do we, which faction is it that's actually causing the giants to raid the people? Because it's not the Lolth factions. It's the EEG factions. It's a Klavdra. And she's not a Lolth worshiper. The Lolth worshippers want to stop her too. You have to have some way for the players to figure that out. So I'm putting together this whole, basically it's an urban adventure in Errol High Kinlu.
Ooh.
Which, you start off and you see some Dro factions fighting in a tavern, and then you get drawn in and you go to a sage, and then, this guy's going to betray you, and you go to this. And it's all designed to give them the information they need to go to the next part of the adventure, which is going to be my Q2. Because Q1 makes no sense. There is no earthly reason for players to go kill Lolth to stop the giant raids. It's got nothing to do with it. And it has to do with the fact that Gygax didn't write it and they got passed on to somebody else. Right. So what I'm going to be making is another version of that. It's going to be a replacement for Q1. I call it Q2. And it's going to be a way where you have to go into Lolth's web, but the reason you're doing it is to finally shut the prison of the Elder Elemental God. Because she's got the keys to the Elder Elemental God's prison in that platinum egg that she has inside her. So
Who
you
gave those to her?
prime material plane, you get the egg with the keys, you go to her layer of the abyss, and then you have to open up the doorway just enough to shove the elemental god back in. And if you're lucky, you can get her in there too and lock them all up. And that's was actually inspired by Gygax's recounting of what he originally intended the module to be before it got passed off to somebody else.
Gadzooks.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm working on.
Cool. Yep. So now we
You
need to
guys are
ask
about 80.
what Mike is up to.
What am I up to?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, let's see.
We
First,
don't
I'm going to have to develop cloning technology so that I can have like 2 extra of me to
Mhm.
compare to
You
Joe's
have to
work.
be immortal so you can have like aspects.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You become a deity and problem
Yeah,
solved. Yep.
yeah. No pressing long-term projects. I'm still working on Castle Greyhawk comic with Scott and
Mm-hmm.
Kanan in
Yep.
chat.
Yep.
You need to do that more often, by the way.
Yes. Definitely.
Mm,
Yep.
I don't know. Our artwork is, yeah, that's hard. Writing, artwork, it's a mood thing. Sometimes I'm more into the writing. Sometimes I'm more into art. It's difficult. I mean, even blogging now is kind of difficult. Luckily this show kind of gives me a little more juice to think of something timely to talk about. Because after a while, it was just really hard to come up with something spur of the moment. But no, I mean, I'm not really. I don't think I'm got any big projects. Not even really running a campaign right now.
So Anna, what's this big project that you hinted at?
There you go.
Yeah, the big I have the big one right now is to try and get the 2018 version of my map out the door, so to speak. That's been the big overhaul that I worked on for months now, and it's scary. It will be out in release candidate the coming week to my patrons, and they will have to look at it until December, and then around Christmas or so, then it will be a release candidate with, if my patrons come up with some changes and things they find typos and things that are wrong and need to be fixed, then I'll try and fix that, and then it will go out on a general kind of, everyone can look at it and pestering with me with all the things that I've done wrong and things that should be there and shouldn't be there, etc., etc. And then that can hopefully be like a month or so. And then in January, I will kind of nail down this edition and start chopping it up to all the versions, make an online version, make a 12-part version, cut it up in small pieces for realm works, etc., etc., etc. Because that's like 100 hours or at least of something like that, of work on chopping it up in all the different versions of the map. That's why I only want to do that once a year, and then the map simply have to live for another year. But now one day a week I sit down and learn new things. I experiment, go off the rails, and try to figure out better ways of doing things, doing new things. And one of the things that I always wanted to do was to be able to simply paint more of Worth in the same style that I've done the Flannies. And that was done using Bryce and fractals back from the 90s and up until more recent times. But those are primitive, and I wanted to see if I could do that in Photoshop without having to involve fractals and stuff. I can simply recreate the style and advance it, because that way I can expand on the map and I can correct things. And so I sat down last week and worked a day on doing it, and I managed to do that, and I also managed to do something else. Now this is kind of technical, and I'll see if I go into the map version. And what I did was that I managed to separate the shading from the texture, because when I do my modern projects that I use World Machine and View and other stuff for, then I get the texture and I get the shading and I get the 3D model, and that means that I can do anything with it. But I wanted to make sure that I can paint on hills and I can put like forest on hills without the hills actually disappearing, or the shading of the hills. and that's something I sat down and I actually managed to do. So I can turn off the shading, or I can simply turn off the textures and hang on a second, I put the old shading, so I have the shading separate from the texture. And that's one of the technical things, meaning now I can actually go in and I can paint maps straight in Photoshop, and they will look as good as my Flanders map. They will even look better because now I don't have the limits of Bryce anymore. I can paint whatever I want in there.
Wow.
And that means that and that means that I can expand on the map much faster, and also I can simply I can paint in giant rocks, and mountains can be much bigger than they could be back in the day, and stuff like that. So if we want to have fantasy things there that shouldn't be in the real world, we can now paint them in, and it's limited to a top-down perspective, so I can't do true 3D, but for this purpose, it doesn't really matter because this is for the top down to just expand on the content for future. So that's one of my big projects, and the first candidate for this was Hepmona Land for several reasons. First of all, because my map actually covers that part that was on the Darlene map. So I had an area that I wanted to expand, and also Hepmona Land is one of these areas that actually have some decent maps and details to work from. So
right, from the Scarlet Brotherhood again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's covered, and there's a lot of people that keep asking me, when can you get Hepmona Land? So for me, it was like the first kind of natural test area to expand out to do other things. So I'm going to work on Hepmona Land, and I don't know exactly how long it will take, but I will work on it, so to speak, and expand on it. And I have we can zoom in here. Here's the test area, so we can see what the quality look like. The upper half here is the existing map, and then under here is the new map. And if we zoom in, and this is my quarter resolution test. So this is only a quarter of the final resolution. And when I figured out that this worked, then I actually made a new setup. And this is the full resolution setup. It's the same resolution as the original Flanese map. So it will actually match. And I've set up all the layers so I can paint in all the islands and all that stuff. But here I can actually test it, and it really works. And I can kind of show you, so I can take the bushlands here. I can go in here and simply paint them on and off, and we can hang on a second. We need to let me take off that's the one. So we'll see here. Yeah, so I can paint on and off a whole bunch of layers, so I can change you see I can simply go in and tweak bits and keep the shading separate, so to speak. So that was the technical breakthrough. So now I've figured out how to do that, and it took me some years of Photoshop knowledge to do that effectively. So I did so I set up this. It took me about 5 hours to do that, but once I know how to do it, I set it up in full resolution, and that way I actually got it much better from, let's see if I can turn this off. So a full resolution. So that's one of the projects that I'm working on, that I got that set up, and I was very, very happy because now I can actually go on and do it. And it will be up to my patrons a little bit what to dig into, but going forward from next year, it will be 2, maybe 3, because now I'm already thinking about 2019 edition, because 2018 is soon done, and there's maybe about 50 or 60 new things to put in there and correct before it's done. But next year I'm thinking about, then I will, at the 2019 edition, I will actually go in and touch up some of the areas, some of the mountain changes and stuff, chains or areas, they don't look that good, and the fractals are kind of primitive, and so I'm thinking about actually touching the Flanese itself, and there's some areas that are much better than others. So I will try and even out the quality. Yep, and touch them up and make them look better. So that's the plan for next year. That's one of them. The other one is to start taking the 3D tools that are now starting to come out, and I hope that at least from around next summer, I will have versions that are good enough tools for 3D, so I can take this map and start mapping. I'm working on Lindor Isles and so on, and the tools are almost good enough to make perfect photoreal maps. They are almost there, so I'm working on it, and next year they will be good enough, so we can start seeing iconic areas mapped in photoreal realism, so to speak.
There's the question.
Yep.
If you're doing the Lindor Isles, where are you putting Rolla Tarmra?
Yeah, Laurel Tarma. Yeah, and that's one of the interesting things.
Because he got moved.
Exactly, and if Len Lekofka, and he lives like 20 miles away here, so he will come over here and bash me if I yeah. So what I realize I need to do, first of all, I will concentrate on the terrain, and meaning you can basically put the cities wherever you want, and that's the. Hang on a second, I just need to sneeze. Sorry. So yeah, so one of the beauty of this is that I can do the terrain, and then we can, as long as I don't go into the resolution that is high enough that you can actually see the city. So what I can do is that I can, in this case, I simply have to have one version where it's on the little island and one it's on the mainland. So that will be, so I have to make two versions of it. So the terrain will be the same, but I have to make two versions of it when I go in, and so we can place the city wherever, because there's probably 50-50. Half the audience want to have it Len Lekofka's original style, and the other half say no, in my campaign I went with TSR's version, so
it's got to be the Darlene style.
Yeah, exactly. So there are several things, and when we get to the city of Greyhawk, it will be the same thing there, because there's people who want to go with Gary's version from the Gord books, and some people want to go with TSR's version from the boxed set. And my idea of attacking that problem is to take all the locations from the boxed set and make sure they appear inside the Gary Gygax.
That's what I did. That's what I did with my Gary version of the set map.
Yeah. So that will.
I made a big. Again, for people who might not know, I made a big map of the city of Greyhawk based on the map City of Hawks by Gary Gygax, which looks nothing like the box set map.
Exactly, and that's my version of it too. That's the one I've always used for my campaign. So
I think it's a better version.
Yeah, me too.
But I made sure to all of the keyed locations of the box set appear on the map.
Exactly. That's my approach too, that they need to have a home there and make sense, because the Gary's version from the City of Hawks is much bigger, so you can easily encompass, put all the stuff in there, and then some, so to speak, and then
it's
a lot
much
of it.
denser.
Yeah. Yep. So that will be my approach when finally I get to it, because that's one of the, if my Patreons are eager to continue to support me, then I will get to there in a few years to get to it. But I want to have the tools in place. So for going forward after this will be, one, to expand the into Hepmona land and to the west. So the Becloonish west is one of these key areas that is next to dig into.
You will have some maps to work with.
Yes, awesome. That's what I'm looking forward to. So yep. Yep. So
it also occurs to me, just veering off to a totally different topic.
Yep.
We probably at least touch on the fact that there has been new Greyhawk content, official Greyhawk content came out this week from Wizards of the Coast.
Oh, you mean Qualish?
I mean the Lost Laboratory of Qualish.
Yes.
Which I downloaded, and I've
me too.
Through it, and it's really good.
Yep, it looks fantastic.
Really a lot of fun.
So then we need to place his Lost Laboratory kind of thing. That needs to go on the map, because
the monastery has to go somewhere, and then the Lost City of whatever it's called has to go somewhere.
Yep.
Did you guys know that on their site they had submission form for Barrier Peak Rumors?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Mine didn't get picked.
Mine didn't get picked either.
Damn. So now you have to. Mike? What was your rumor?
My rumor was a little too close to the plot of the adventure.
Oh, okay. So no spoilers. Okay. Yeah. What about you, Joe? Joe, what is your?
Honestly, I don't remember what my rumor was, but
Okay. Yep.
it was too close to the original, I think.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, fell into
Yep.
that trap.
Yep.
But I honestly, and it's it's one of those things where they donate a portion of it to a charity for children,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
children's hospital.
Yep.
So it's a good cause, and it's really a fun adventure. And hey, it's new official Greyhawk content.
Yep.
Which
Yep.
I just love. I'll take it. I'll take it.
Yep.
Yeah, it doesn't look like anyone in chat had one picked either. So we all failed to get published.
Yep. Yep. So yeah. So I have the kind of dual thing is one to expand on the Flanneys map with the Mona Land and go in other directions, and the other and also to start touching up the Flanneys itself, some areas that needs to be improved that didn't have the quality, and they're also so old that I didn't know what I was doing when I did it, and it just survived. So that needs to be touched up for the next edition next year, and also to start digging in and making 3D location maps, so to speak, or area maps that covers roughly about 100 or to a couple of 100 miles in each direction, each little area, so to speak, the size of the Lendor Isles or the Viscounty of Bourbonc or something, that area, a few 100 miles in each direction, down to about 100 feet per pixel. So something like that. So you can see where almost down to individual trees. You can see big houses and stuff. So it's not good for battle maps, but it's perfect for moving around an area, for hex crawls and stuff. It will be the perfect ones. If you want to run wilderness adventures like you would run dungeon adventures, that's the kind of map that you will like. So you can go around and put your orc's nest and that little whatever things that happens outside. So you can basically treat areas in nature like you would treat rooms in a dungeon. That's the kind of map I want to have. And then you can simply flash out the 100 by 100 feet for 5 feet squares if you want to for battle. But you can get all the surroundings, and you can say that hill, there are arrow archers up on that hill and they're shooting at you and stuff like that. And when the dragon flies by, you can kind of see if it has cover for spells with long range spells and stuff like that. So it will be the complement to the map that you use for the battle, and it will tell you what the surroundings are. So that's the other. So those two things. So my goal next year is to get Mona Land mapped and to get the Lendor Isle mapped in 3D. And to get an updated 2019 version of the map. That's the goal for next year. Yep. And if my patrons are willing, then I can even do more 3D stuff, and we might even get, if I can work full time, more than now. I work about 2 days a week on Greyhawk. If I can double that, then we can probably see Bacloonish West and a whole bunch of other stuff, cool stuff.
Hey.
Yep. So because this is something that can be done. I can do much quicker expansion using only Photoshop, and the results can be better. So that's good. And then they will be published using GIS standards instead of Illustrator, which means that they will be much more usable, and people can download QGIS, that is a free tool, and they can tinker with it and change it and add in information. They can transform it to whatever projection they want, etc. You can tie areas together and stuff. So that's the other track that will, technology-wise, that will come in. And you can also create web-based maps and stuff that can live in a browser and things. So that means that technology, and you can also extract data from the maps. So you can put them in a spreadsheet, and you can put the position of something in the world in a spreadsheet, and you can have QGIS reading the spreadsheet and display it on the map and stuff. So it opens up for a future of a lot of interesting mapping possibilities. So I want to make sure that the data and all the effort that goes in here becomes useful in as many ways as possible. That's the next goal to move over. And QGIS is an open source software, meaning anyone can just take it for free and start playing with the data. That's the other key thing with it. So those are the things that I'm working on. Apart from now, the main thing for me the next 6 months will be the next Midgard installment that I can't talk much about, but Midgard is ramping up.
Understandable.
Yep, there's a new Midgard project that will be the mainstay, and I have another commission that I'm also working on. So Greyhawk takes about a third or a quarter of my time, but hopefully with my
Including the show?
sorry.
You said about taking time of your week. I said including this show.
Oh yes, yeah, including this show. Well, no, this show goes on top of everything, so to speak. So yeah, I sit down and this also inspired me to do things. So it's kind of a good thing that way. When we talk about Greyhawk, and he always forces me to think more about it and stuff. So yeah, and this was a lot of work to set it up first, but now when we set it up, it doesn't take that long to once all the things are set up and the graphics is done and stuff. It's not that difficult. So if people want to do, and I will also do my own map streaming going forward a bit, well, for my my patrons especially, and then I will have Discord and stuff, so my patrons can come on and babble with me and while I'm doing things. So that's the other thing that will come in the future very soon. Yeah,
I would watch that probably.
Yeah, it's a bit like watching paint dry, but at least you can yell at me for doing things.
Bob Ross is very popular on Twitch.
Okay, yeah.
So
painting, yep. So I plan to especially when you do Photoshop, it's kind of better. When you do World Machine and 3D, it's kind of boring to look at because it's kind of half of it is programming basically. So it's not that much fun to look. It's like looking at someone making a flow chart, and it's not that much fun. But Photoshop and Illustrator work, it's really cool. So that is something I will do. So that's pretty much what I'm tied up with doing. But it's so cool to be back now for the first time in 5 years. I'm breaking new grounds. Yeah. And that was a mainstay. So from now on, it's going to be expanded. So I want to the ultimate goal is to have the whole of the Worth done in the Flannies resolution and style, so to speak, that I've done the Flannies. So and then I have to talk to Carlos about Fireland because he has some new cool material, and we need to have him on the show in the not too distant future, so he can talk about his Fireland project because that's awesome stuff. So we have lots of stuff.
And you've inspired Casey to start working on Bandit Kingdoms again.
Yes, exactly. That's perfect because we need to because I promised that I would do Ratik as the first test area when I go from, because first I need to, when I do 3D regional or area of interest maps, that first I need to do a self-contained island, and Flannies Geographical Society we voted, and Lindor Isle is the first. But then my patrons have said that they want Ratik to be the first area of the Flannies that I will do a test of, so to speak. So when I get it, yep.
There was a question real quick going back for Joe. When do you think DM's Guild will open the doors for Greyhawk? They want to speculate on a year.
I wish I had some insider information I could share, but I don't. Good God, the fact that they released a Greyhawk thing this week, it's kind of a nice little thing, but the way they're talking, just the reading between the lines, I don't think it's on the radar at the moment. I really don't know. Honestly, I don't have a read on it.
Yeah,
they've got a lot of other, because look at the settings that they have published, other than the Forgotten Realms. They've got Ravenloft, which is very specialized. Yeah. They've got Ravnica, which is very specialized. They've got, they're not going for the generic stuff. I would expect that the next one they do is either going to be Dark Sun or Spelljammer, honestly.
What about
There's
Planescape?
Been a lot of Spelljammer.
Yeah, I was thinking Planescape, because for two reasons. One is that it's specialized, it's very thematic, and second, they can use it as a gateway to other, meaning the City of Sigil and stuff. They can use it as a gateway to other settings, meaning you can go there.
They do the same thing with Spelljammer. Plus
that's true.
They included a Spelljammer ship, and a Spelljammer helm is actually in the new Dungeon of the Mad Mage that they just released.
Yeah, perfect.
Oh.
Then you have it. That tie it up.
The new Undermountain thing. Yeah. So maybe that's reading too much into it.
Yeah.
But
2 years, 3 years,
little breadcrumbs here and there.
Yeah. So what do you say? 2 years? They have at least a year and a half kind of decked out in the future, because the next year they already had the products basically soon ready for print, because
Well, they have to because of the printing.
yeah,
in
exactly.
China.
It takes 6 months to get it ready. So at least that you work at least a year ahead of
Right.
what you. It's like what I usually work on things about a year and a half before they're going to be published, and so maybe 3 years. So
At least
yeah,
but again, I'm
yeah,
I'm guessing.
yeah. Oh yeah, I'm guessing too. I have
Yeah.
no inside info. So
Well,
yeah,
people think I do. That's
yeah,
the thing. I gotta make it clear to everybody that I talk to, because people think I have some sort of inside line.
yeah.
I don't.
No.
I'm as much in the dark as anybody into
Mm-hmm.
Wizards production schedule.
Yep.
Yeah, Saracen he brings up a point that Planescape's already assumed in the base 5e. They've been dropping a lot more planar stuff lately.
Yeah.
But the key is a sigil adventure. If
Yeah.
sigil is
They can do that.
Yeah.
And bear in mind too, nothing says just because they publish one thing for a setting that they have to open it up on DM's Guild.
That's true. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, they published a Greyhawk setting, a Greyhawk adventure today,
Yeah.
this week.
Yeah.
It's not open on DM's Guild.
Yeah.
The Lost Laboratory of Qualish has a monodrone in it.
Yes, it does.
I
And
don't
it
know
also
what
has a
that
tiefling,
makes
which
a
works for me,
difference,
but that's
No.
neither here nor there.
Yep.
but yeah, speculation.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think fan demand might have something to do with it too. Like if all of a sudden some movie came out about playing, that was similar to Spelljammer, and that got hot, or and people were dressing up in costume as Get Yankee or whatever, I don't know, GIF. Then Wizards would pounce on it, like, oh, that type of genre is popular.
Well, remember, not too long ago, the president of, I guess it was the president of Hasbro, was on some show talking about, the future of D&D and stuff like that. And he's talking about analogies to esports.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And then you
So
had
I could
D&D.
see it.
Yeah.
Some streaming channel somewhere on something, some channel somewhere, had a Greyhawk thing, and it was wildly popular with tens of thousands of people watching every week with bated breath for what's going to happen next. That might stir them a little more than other things might, because that's what they want. That's where they see the future of the game going.
Yeah.
They see the future of the game going on people watching other people play and being willing to pay money for it.
Of course, now that I'm thinking about that, maybe Greyhawk's golden opportunity already passed, because if they wanted a role-playing game similar to Game of Thrones, Greyhawk is your best bet.
Yeah.
No, if
That
they
was
wanted
really
to do
hot.
a Game of Thrones type thing, they would have done Birthright.
Yeah. Birthright is even better that way. Well,
That's
yeah.
Birthright is like right in that alley. It's
I suppose so.
But Greyhawk has
shoot you down
potential.
so hard, Mike.
Yeah. Well, I'm just trying to think what is already in popular culture that would say, "Hey, great, let's do Greyhawk. It's similar to that."
Yeah.
And so
Part of
Birthright kind of
Greyhawk's
popped in
problem
my head.
is that it's
Yeah.
very difficult to differentiate it in the popular mind from Forgotten Realms.
Yeah.
It's a generic European fantasy campaign, which
Yeah.
which are exactly the words that you would use to describe Forgotten Realms.
Yeah.
And unless there's some way to differentiate it really significantly among people who don't know it already,
Yeah.
because they can't, they're not going to release it if it's just for the fans. They
Right.
need to sell.
Well, yeah, they need to widen it.
zillion of
Yeah.
these things.
Mm-hmm.
If they're going to publish a book, they want to sell 1 million of them,
Yeah.
and there aren't 1 million Greyhawk fans.
Although, like they're saying Birthright would fit better, but they're not going to take a chance on bringing Birthright back again, which I would assume was a flop the first time, technically. They would
I
sooner
honestly
bring
don't know
Greyhawk
that
back than
much about
Birthright.
Birthright in terms of production and sales and stuff. They came out with a whole bunch of stuff for it.
Yeah,
originally.
but in that time, day and age, that wasn't a sure thing for actually getting you some profit out of it because they probably published a lot of stuff that didn't
Yeah,
even.
exactly.
Yeah,
They were publishing a lot of stuff for a lot of things.
yeah, that
and
was the gluttonous era of TSR when they just published a whole bunch of stuff without doing the accounting right. But we had a good question from Bavix. If a Greyhawk movie was made, what adventure would you want to see? So now I need to ask you two guys what your favorite movie script set in Greyhawk would be.
I already
Mike,
know my choice because
I know mine too. Go ahead.
it's all about multi-part stories.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd have to go either with that damn, giants drow arc, right? Or you might go with something lesser like maybe a reworked Five Shall Be One, where the question for swords or whatever, because everyone loves swords.
Well, if you got Peter Jackson to do it, you could turn G1 into 3 movies. So,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But my choice is the obvious. If you're going to do Greyhawk, and like I said before, the thing that differentiates Greyhawk from everything else, it's got Greyhawk. You would do your movie would have to have something to do with the city of Greyhawk, and would have to do something with Castle Greyhawk.
That's true.
That is the distinguishing factor that Greyhawk
City
is. You start off in the city, and you do kind of a Fafford and the Grey Mouser kind of thing for the first third. Then you would transition into the dungeon, and you'd have all these weird things happening in the dungeon, and kind of an almost aliens-like sense of claustrophobia as things are chasing you around. And then you'd come into this big, maybe even Isle of the Ape or something like that for the big finale. But I mean, if you're going to use Greyhawk for a one-shot thing like a movie, use the one thing that Greyhawk's got, and that is Greyhawk.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Any other ideas, Anna?
I would go I agree with you in that way that that's what Greyhawk is famous for if you've been a Greyhawker forever. But I'm the kind of the heretic Greyhawk fan, so to speak. So for me that will be. But now I'm just thinking what I would want to see personally, because I agree that might sell for the reason of making it iconic Greyhawk, but I would love to see something different that way. I would love to see and this is my interesting. One of the things I would love to see a movie about Melf or some iconic character that way going out to save the world from evil, so to speak. Something.
Luke, I hope you're listening.
Yeah.
Anna's got the merch part figured out. The toys.
Yeah. Because I would take one. Some character like that from his life growing up, so to speak, and he will be going out, see the evil in the world, get screwed over, and go back home to Celine again, and train and be better, and got some friends and so on, and then go out again on a on a mission to save the world, so to speak.
And let's not fool ourselves. They are working on a D&D movie.
Yeah.
And what is the one property that they have D&D related that they know is immensely popular? Drizzt.
Yeah, and I would say two, Drizzt and Dragonlance. Those two should be made into movies, definitely.
Dragonlance would be I'm one of the few people who actually liked the animated Dragonlance movie. I thought it was really good, and I wanted to see more of it.
Yeah. For those two will be obvious to me, and because you don't make a movie about a rules system, you make a movie about stories, which meant that So for me, a D&D movie, doesn't make sense.
Too on point for with the popularity of Game of Thrones. There might it might be just a little too close to Game of Thrones but I really think the they crank out books. I mean they.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it will be Dragonlance would be will be an obvious. Dragonlance and Drizzt, those are the two. Just look at the novels; those are the stories, and that's what you make movies about. And then you put the D&D under, meaning you want to play in this world. Then you use the D&D rule system, period, so to speak. But you sell a movie not because it's about a rule system. That to me is ridiculous. So a D&D movie doesn't make sense, but a Dragonlance movie and a Drizzt Do'Urden TV series or vice versa, that's what I want to see. And that's why I would love to see something set in Greyhawk that way too. The struggle against Ayus, or what about something cool set from Ayu's perspective, so to speak, from one of his kind of scheming that way, or in a TV series intrigue, kind of a court drama about the Scarlet Brotherhood and how they take over things, or the fall of the Great Kingdom set in a court drama, so to speak. That would be awesome, with a Karulk court wizard and stuff like that, and something. Yeah, there's those types of stories are the ones I want to see. But I know I'm partisan that way because that's the kind of movie I like. I like to see the epic landscapes. I like to see the fantasy road movie, and I want to see the world and so on and so forth, because that's what I would go and see. But I can totally make sense that from a business perspective, that might not be the best idea. So yeah, so I'm biased. I'm highly biased. Yeah.
Bards of Greyhawk is in the chat, and they've done stuff to expand.
Yes, and they I've talked to today, so they will be on in a future show, and
cool.
And yeah, definitely.
And Estwild's right. If Joe Manganiello got behind anything, D&D movie related, that's where I think the crowd will probably follow.
That's not wrong.
Yep.
Very interesting.
Yep. So this is Well, now we got something in that new language in chat that I'm not really aware of. All the Twitch icons and all that, like small turtles.
Oh man. Yeah. We are being raided.
Oh, we're being raided. Oh wow. Oh, awesome. Hi.
Atta girl.
Yep.
7 people.
Yep. Oh wow. Yep. Welcome to our discussion about Greyhawk and stuff. So we're not playing. So So now we have. Yep.
Yeah. For those just arriving by raid, we're talking with Joe Block here, Greyhawk mega fan.
Yep. So we're talking about the setting and stuff, and we can So we talk about the Greyhawk setting, and let me move out a bit. And so so we have the maps and stuff.
Hey Chippy, hey Pablo.
Yep. Okay, now the question. So what adventures do you guys consider the classic Greyhawk campaign, and how would you connect them?
Good Lord.
Yeah, that was a good question. I put that to Joe right away here. Yep.
Take it.
I actually talked about this on my blog not too long ago, because I have a really weird way of ordering the modules, all centered around the Elder Elemental God. Because what I would say is, do the giants first, and the drow and then the drow, and then you go back to Temple of Elemental Evil. And the reason I do that is because
as high level characters?
No, as the henchmen of the high level characters who are in the giant series.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And the reason I do that is because there's stuff that in a properly reconstituted Temple of Elemental Evil, where you have the Elder Elemental God as a figure, that will only make sense to you if you've already seen the hints and the stuff earlier on. And so if you see it as kind of an assistant to the high level characters, then it'll make more sense, and then you can come into your own as a hero yourself. So it's kind of a 2-step campaign that I would envision. First, you're playing a 10th level character going through G1 through D3. Then you are the 3rd level henchman of those characters. Now you're in Hamlet, and oh my God, we're seeing the Elder Elemental God again, and then you go from there. So that's how I would do it.
Yeah,
I know a lot of people like to work in the slavers and stuff like that, but I would keep it thematically wrapped around the Elder Elemental God, and maybe do a once you're done with the Temple of Elemental Evil, maybe then go into the Yaddle Mountains, where you're going into Sajkant and the lost temple of Forgotten Temple of Tharizdun.
So now I'm but you might not want to answer this for spoilery reasons and so on, but what's your take on Elder Elemental God? It's one of these enigmas that we've heard and stuff about, and because I don't know, and I haven't read anywhere near as much as either of you have read about the Elder Elemental God, and you're the Pomarsh expert too, Joe, so you kind of you're into this. Yeah.
Well, I know Gygax wrote up a whole big thing that was in the Orth Journal, and I'm where I think it was Istus or somebody, Biori maybe, shattered the Elder Elemental God into little stones that were. I like the earlier conception of the Elder Elemental God that he also talked about, which was it's a primal force. A deity that is almost perfectly imprisoned on a distant star, and it's able to influence the prime material plane only partially because of a flaw in the prison, which is where what I talked about earlier with Lolth and the egg and the keys and stuff. But I love that kind of Lovecraftian thought to it, that it was very it is literally an elder god, and it's harsh and is imprisoned, but it can still radiate its malevolence through the earth.
So
and
go ahead. Do you connect the elder god with the Elder Elemental God with Tharistun, or are they separate, or?
No, that is wrong. That it was never a thing.
Okay. Yep.
And Return to the Temple of Elemental Evil never happened.
Oh. That's good. That
was Monty Cook, right?
Yep.
Yes.
But he's Monty Cook. Come on.
I like him personally, but man, he just didn't do any research when he wrote that. He just threw diamond mines and volcanoes. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Yep.
So so that's where I go. I would bring it back to a much more Lovecraftian root, and you see that a little in G1 and D3, where there's these murals of tentacled monsters with things on that you don't really see in Tharizdun. And I know a lot of people try to make that connection between the EEG and Tharizdun, but the way they're presented in the actual adventures is really, really different. And if you look at the way that the players interact with their temples, you can see this. Because when a player goes into an Elder Elemental God temple, there's tentacle rods and there's tentacle curtains, and if you touch things, you go insane. That's really different than what we see in for the Lost Temple of Tharizdun. Because in the Tharizdun temple, there's no insanity. There's no nothing. There's nothing like that. There's no tentacled horrors. What there is corruption. And if you read the module carefully, in order to get the treasure, it forces the player characters to become Tharizdun worshippers.
True.
You have to put on the robes.
Spoiler.
You have to burn the incense. You have to go into but you have to worship Tharizdun in order to get to the treasure. It's corruptive, and the players, not just the characters. This in the same sense that you have body horror in movies. This is character horror, because in order to go through the module, you actually have to corrupt your own character as you play him.
If any of my friends are watching this stream, earmuffs.
Yep. Yep.
But they're really presented differently, and I think there's room in Greyhawk for two elder
kind of elder major destructive forces.
There's hundreds of gods. Why lump too big?
Right. Why do
and
they
things like
all
that.
have to be Thoros?
Yep. Yep. Thank you so much, Joe. That was the best kind of analysis I've heard on that. That was good. Yep. So Mike, what's your take on the classic module, how to lay it out and how
A
to module race, or how would you? What's your take on how to use it, so to speak? Yeah.
A lot of my background is just like Joe's movie series here. I'm all about urban adventures, mega dungeon crawls.
Yeah.
You got your Greyhawk Ruins and your Mar Castle. They're all in very short distance of another. Oh, and Temple of Elemental Evil. I mean,
Yeah.
that's enough a lifetime adventuring right there.
Yeah. You go to your iconic locations and
you wouldn't
run
even
that. Yeah.
ever leave the central Flannis for hardly anything else unless you got bored with dungeon crawls. At least that's where I got most of my mileage, in my youth, was doing dungeon crawls.
Yeah.
I was never really big on the Giant series or the D series. I own all these things, but I've never ran them. I've never ran Barrier Peaks, even though I like the quirky stuff. So I haven't really put much thought into this kind of a topic.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it's just random and luck that you get two things that kind of flow into another.
Yeah, this is interesting. Now we have Joe who knows your modules, you know how to connect them, and you have that all set up. And then with Mike, that kind of you take them into account and you run your. And then you have me, who's the ultimate sandbox DM, meaning I read them and then I forget about them. So I read them and I put the places on the map and kind of make maybe one paragraph, meaning that's a big old dungeon that so and so used to live in, and that was a mad wizard, whatever, and that's it. The rest I simply discard and then run with it. And my adventures are
When I run a game, it's very sandboxy too.
Yeah.
I don't say, you're going into Castle of Mount Archmage tonight.
Yeah.
It's, where do you want to go?
Yeah. Yeah. So I've only run one module basically as written and read it through, and that was Hamlet. And then I read made the T1 to 4, but after they got through the moat house and get to Null, then I kind of went off the rails and made my own version of it, so to speak. So it was less. Oh, look at this! We have feline presence here. Awesome. Yeah, I have my little sidekick over here. That's Minnie in the background. But look. So who's this? Yep.
That was Eclipse.
Okay.
That was Eclipse's cameo.
Yep. Cool. Yep. Yeah. So this is So then you can, when you run your own Greyhawk adventures, remember is that as long as people around the table have fun, then you're doing it right, so to speak. That's the general rule. Okay. Any new interesting questions here? Watch the movie The Void. It screams to be used in Greyhawk. Ooh, I haven't watched The Void. Is that a Thuristan movie maybe or something?
Yeah, some Cthulhuian.
Yeah. Yeah, and we have Monty Cook to answer. So we have to, when we see him at Gen Con next, we have to go up and make him answerable to what he did with the Return of the and he's awesome. But he's gone from one greatness to the other. So if you have one thing that everyone might not like, that's probably goes for.
I like Monty personally.
Oh yeah, he seems like an awesome guy, and yeah, I've only met him, like shaking his hands and said hi to him. That's it. So at Gen Con once, but that's it. Yep.
Checking my notes here. One of the viewers, Ananier, mentioned that the adventure UK6, All That Glitters, is in the Sea of Dust. I don't know that. I've heard of it, but I've never read it.
I have. I think I have it.
That true?
Yeah, I think I have it somewhere. Yeah, and I read it through, and it's one of these things that where they go around doing something there and they teleport at the end to one location, I think down in the Hell Furnaces or something, if I remember correctly. Huh. Yeah, it's one of these, it's a little bit of a they go because I had two locations, if I remember. This
no,
is
I
like
missed
10
that.
years ago, so I might be
All
mistaken.
right,
But it was one of these modules that had a location set there. And then someone did a
I
rip
got the
off
edge.
and in Living Greyhawk and did some other version of basically the
Yeah.
same idea down there too, and put some monastery up on the in the hell furnaces on one hilltop with some clerics that were devoted to meditation or whatever was sitting there, and they had a skull as their. Hang on a second, I can zoom in here, and we can zoom into to down here is the they there's a couple of locations. So we had the Order of Bone and the Sanctuary of Fallen Stars was something that was set up there. And then there was some ruined city down here close to it that I put in there, but they didn't have a name, so there was just in there. So there's some of the, and it's the Valley was one of these locations that was talked about in some of these modules too. So yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Let's see. Someone else also probably jokingly asked in chat, Anna, when are you going to map the Underdark?
Yes, that is definitely something that
Oh, it's not a joke.
yeah, no, it's not. No, it's and it's one of these things that I I have three different new areas because now I'm specialized in doing large continental, large outdoor map, meaning mapping landscape has been my specialty like for 20 years, and so I want to move into to a couple of different. The first one is to do more local area maps, and then to move into city mapping. That's one definite niche that I need to go into in order to kind of get
I would
more
love to
detail.
see a definitive City of Greyhawk map.
Yeah. So that's one of my pet projects. The other one is to map outer planes and stuff, meaning locations that are so out of whack that they defy the normal real world, and that's one of the other things. But I need to be able to map the real world or something, terrain and stuff that looks like the real world first really well, and then go off the rails and start doing so one of the things is to do outer planar stuff. The other third area is of course the Underdark, and I've done some I have a lot of ideas and written notes and done some programming and stuff, because what I want to do that normally hasn't really been done, I want to set them in 3D so you can actually see what is in the mountain or what's underground and so on and so forth, so you can actually see.
VR.
Yeah, so you can actually see. I want cutouts and stuff, so I want the Underdark maps to be set in the landscape so you can actually see, because these are large area underground complexes. So I want them to be mapped so you can actually see where under the landscape you are, so you can see if it's a hole up there but daylight comes in, where is that in the world, and so on and so forth. So so that's the third area, and I think the Underdark and the other planes goes basically hand in hand, because I need to work in all three dimensions, and I need to work with light and cutouts and all sorts of stuff to map things like the abyss and the nine hells and yeah.
Anna goes to map the abyss. She's never seen again.
I was just going to say, never seen again after that. So yep. I need to level up first so I can survive down there. So yeah, that's the thing. I need to be epic first, and I'm not epic yet. So yeah. So but definitely it's on the radar, and I'm already thinking, and I've thought for years how to do the approach, how to approach it. So from a technical standpoint, I need to work out the basics so I know how to set things up, and also not only so it looks good, but also so it can be done effectively. Meaning, if I can work on one little dungeon that looks underground, it's awesome, but it would take me 6 months. Nah, I want to be able to do it a bit faster, so you can, because these are vast areas. So you basically have to approach them a bit like landscape mapping. You have to do an overview map first, and then you have to be able to use that data effectively and go in and detail each area and make the areas actually fit the big map. And to do that accurately is one of the challenges.
Just don't forget the long tunnel that goes from the Flannis all the way out to the Sundered Empire on the west coast of
there's plenty of them. They're hundreds of miles long and big caverns and stuff, so they're basically worlds in themselves, and so there's a bunch of that. But before on the one of my entries into Underdark will probably be the Rift Canyon, because the Rift Canyon will go from landscape down to Underdark. So that I think will be a kind of way to be, and it's also, I always want to do the most difficult bit first, so I kind of know that I don't paint myself in a corner technically and artistically. So when I do cities, I probably would start with the Greyhawk city and not a little tiny village somewhere. So the same way I will probably start with Rift Canyon, because it's one of my pet peeves to map the Rift
Of course,
Canyon.
the chat's all now asking about your globe. You got to do the globe.
Yes, and that's part of right now when I expand on it, is to map that's the GIS technology, so to speak, because with GIS I will actually map everything we get at geographical coordinates, and that means that you can wrap it around a proper globe. So yep, it's already underway.
The trouble is the distortion at the top of the map. It's not. It's bad.
Well, yeah, exactly, and that's one of the things to go with. What and the only place where we have the longitudes or the latitudes mentioned they are just straight lines going through.
Right.
And so my approach to that is that I take in the center of the map, I assume they're accurate, and then I simply make the edges of the map less accurate. And so
it gets worse as you go off into OWRK.
I simply assume that the edges of the map, so the Tyronian the Tyronian Peninsula up in the far east is probably more distorted. The area around Greyhawk, I assume, is mapped accurately.
The problem is that we're told that on the map that we have, it gives us hexes that are 30 miles across.
Yes, yeah, but you simply have to skip the hexes, because that
it would have been so much easier if they had just said that OWRK is a cylinder.
Yeah, but the good,
just be done with it, make it easy.
Yeah. But I'm such a free thinker that way, that I go off the rails. I don't care if the hexes, it doesn't match that way, and I get a lot of I get some heat for it, so to speak. And so
one thing I talked about a long time ago was the land of black ice, which deals with it. And one of the things I found when I was doing a little research is that black ice is actually a real thing.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And it's also tied to the idea of a hollow earth, because the thought being that because black ice is caused at least sometimes by either volcanic ash going into the ice, or by pollen. Pollen goes under the ice, gets frozen in, and the ice turns black.
Oh yeah, yeah. Ice can be like snow, can be black if it's full of soot and whatnot. So yeah.
Okay.
But people were saying that was coming from the inner Earth, because there are there's these jungles and volcanoes and everything, and that was flowing over the edge and causing black ice. And the fact that we have a whole land of black ice at the top of the map for Greyhawk made me think maybe Gary was thinking of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he does have guys
an inner Earth kind of thing. It's just a little.
Well, my version of Greyhawk, the Earth is not hollow, but it's not made out of magma and so on. It's basically, you have it's the four elementals, elements. So you have a lot of earth, mostly earth and all that goes with it, rocks and sand and whatever. And then you have the fire influence and the water influence and the air, meaning the air pockets in there, there are lots of water and lots of magma and fire. And the combination of it, meaning you get both steam and magma and all sorts of stuff down there. So for me, it's like a mixture of it. And you have some areas, meaning Rift Canyon, that you have more air influence, meaning there's big hollow openings down there and no one knows what lives down there. So, and then there's like the near div, unknown depths, that might be watery connections down to way deep down. What I haven't figured out is how actually gravity works down there, but it's a fantasy world. I don't have to worry about that. We don't even know how gravity works in the real world, so and it still works. So I can just go with it. It's D&D physics.
A long time ago, I did a thing in the Rift Canyon. I did a whole underworld thing, Underdark thing around the in and around the Rift Canyon.
Yep.
And I had it so that thousands of years ago, the tunnels actually went through and then the Rift Canyon formed, cutting them in two. So you had these holes in the
Yeah,
sides.
that's a perfect analogy,
Yeah.
because in my campaign I assume it's very deep. It's like almost unimaginably deep, and is going for many miles down, and it has connections with like the plane of shadow, abyss, and a whole bunch of stuff down there. So if you go down there, the chance that you come up again is not that big, so to speak.
Yeah, I did a whole campaign and set
Yeah.
in Rift. It was fun.
Yep. So it's not. I don't like the description saying that it's like a mile deep, whatever. If it's like 50 miles across, a mile deep is not even a dip. Even the Inland Empire Valley in LA is deeper than the canyon, and that's like a plain, not a canyon. So the measurements that are talked about in the adventures, that is not a valley, that's a plain. That's plain with some hills. That's like what the widest valley in the Appalachians or something like that is, like ridiculous. That's like the hills are a mile high and they're like separated 20 miles. You can barely see 20 miles away. That's not a canyon at all. That's ridiculous, especially not a fantasy canyon. If it's 20 miles wide, then it's 200 miles deep. That's a canyon. So that's more. It's 10 times deeper than it's wide. Then you get the right proportions. Like the Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon is, well, at least is as deep as it's wide. So if it's 20 miles across, then it's at least 20 miles deep. So then you get the right proportions. Then it looks epic, so to speak. It's like the fjords in Norway. You get the same way. They are roughly as wide as the mountains around them are tall. And then you get the impressive kind of canyon squeezed feel, so to speak. This is kind of awesome. So that's my take. So in that's one of the few times where I simply ignored the text completely and went wild with it. What I call the cartographic exuberance. Yep. And the other one is a mapgasm. I had that the other day when I was figuring out how to do Hepmona land, and I can kind of figure out how to shade the landscape separate.
I had that very same experience a couple weeks ago. I was trying to recreate the old SPI terrain.
Mm-hmm.
Because SPI was a war game company, the Hex Encounters.
Yeah.
And they had a special way of doing terrain on their maps. So they did forests with a very specialized. I don't know if you remember those linotype things you would rub on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Way back when. They use those. And so I actually found online somebody, I forget who it was, somebody who's actually a Greyhawk person, had these on his website. They had scans of these linotypes.
So you could use that exact same graphic and recreate the map.
So
wow.
I put that into GIMP, and then I put the whole thing on some of my hexographer maps, and I was able to make swamps and forests and stuff that looked just like these SPI maps from the 1970s.
Oh,
and I was
that's
like,
cool.
Oh my God, I can't believe I got to do that.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yep. When you have these kind of, when you make a technical breakthrough that way, it's fantastic. So So I'm started, and I've done the first steps in actually mapping the Flannies. So I've made it the sketch of the whole. Hang on a second here. We have that I made this map, this sketch, so to speak, and then I superimposed the real world on top of it, and then I can play with it and do projections and stuff. So I will go from here and move in on the Flannies and make more and more kind of detailed and nail down the positions of Flannies. So that's the progress will be first get the overall view, so I can place the Flannies right and get the coordinates for it, and then I can work on different areas, detail the areas, and start getting everything.
You can do it.
Yeah. So I'm learning and doing that, and so GIS will be a way of both to kind of present the data and to make it more useful and versatile. So that will be my goal. Awesome. In the future, you can also reskin QGIS is an open source, so you can basically make a script that you only show the buttons that you want. So hopefully sometime in the future, I can kind of you can simply install an overlay and you get the Greyhawk buttons on QGIS, and you can show the layers and just add your symbols, and I want a town there and I want to draw roads and stuff. So that will be a possibility. So you don't have to see all the other crap under it if you don't want to. So then you can use it in a simplified mode when I just want to use the Greyhawk data, and you can, and also with a little bit of support, I can have a map server serving the GIS data for Greyhawk, so for the Flannies, and that way we could be useful. And then you can add your own layers and your own version of it, and simply download that data and then manipulate it. Meaning, I don't want that town anymore. In my campaign, this city is ruined and taken over by someone else, and you can draw new borders and you can play with it. Because for me, it's like the map is not a static thing. For me, every game session, I usually change something on my map. That's why printed maps is kind of useless for me. I want to. It's a living thing. It's something that I add to change every game session. So that's, and I want every DM to run their campaign to make their version of the map. That's the ultimate goal.
Hey, we're getting close up here on 9 o'clock.
Yep.
Joe, is there anything else you want to plug?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just I do have a couple things to plug.
Yep.
This weekend I'm going to be at MeepaCon in Scranton, Pennsylvania, assuming that the snow allows me to go. I'll be vending there for BRW games, so all my stuff will be there on sale. I'm also going to be working on, in addition to all the Greyhawk stuff that I talked about earlier, I'm working on a book called Adventures Great and Glorious, which is a high-level supplement for...
Mass combat?
What's that?
Mass combat?
Two kinds of mass combat. One which is just math, and one which is actually going to be a full-blown miniatures war game.
Nice. Mass combat's one of those things I'm always chasing for the goal.
It's actually based more on spells and sorcery than anything else, so there's not any die rolling. It's just math. It's basically scaled up melee combat based on averages. So I've been able to do lots of spreadsheet work, which is lots of fun. And I'm also obviously working on my next Castle of Mad Archmage installment. I'm trying to do one a year, so there'll be one out in 2019.
Nice.
And I think those are the two big things I'm working on, other than the Greyhawk stuff. So,
are you going to be at GaryCon again?
I am going to be at GaryCon. I'm also going to be at TotalCon, which is in New England in February, I think like the weekend before GaryCon. So I'm like taking off all kinds of time from work. So
there might be a increased Greyhawk presence at GaryCon this year. I'm hoping. I don't have anything.
Yep, I plan to go to GaryCon as well. So
awesome.
Yep. And
Awesome.
I'm thinking I'm going to look into, now I can ask you on the show here, do you have any idea of, is it really expensive to have a table, or if it's even possible to have a little table somewhere set up?
There's I believe, I can't speak for the con, but I believe there's a waiting list.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
But it wasn't all that expensive, once I got in.
Yeah.
And the con itself is amazing.
Yeah.
It's much bigger than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it was impressively big. I thought it would be this little family con. It was several thousand people. It was
exactly. I was not prepared for how large it was.
Yeah.
But it was a really energetic convention.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed meeting everybody, and people came up. And,
and it also doesn't it has more of that small con feel, because at Gen Con everybody's running around and so busy with business or whatever, but at GaryCon you can stand and talk to someone for half an hour about something.
Exactly. Yeah. It feels like a fan-run con.
Yeah. The same thing as PaizoCon has that feel too. That you get it's more laid back that way. You get a chance to talk and dive in deep to things. So,
Brian and Chet's also mentioning that the Greyhawk Channel, our host here, they have a whole house that they've rented out for
Gen Con. Yes, and I'm going to show it again. And here is the ad for that. So
I want to go, but I just can't commit yet. It's too far out for me.
Yep. And
Uh,
how do you, if you're interested in the Greyhawk Gen Con B&B, where do you sign up, or how do you reach out?
you got to be well, I think the easiest route to this is to be a member of like the Greyhawk channel on Twitch, right?
Okay, yeah. Yep.
And then
Or you can be a
through
patron
that you
on
can get on the Discord.
Greyhawk Channel patron as well. That way you can also get in
Yeah.
on the action.
When this
Yep.
gets uploaded to YouTube, can you put the link to that on the description?
Yes, we can. But we can put it in chat. So hang on a second. So while you're working on this, I'll dig into this. So we have.
Yeah, it's open to everyone. I'm just trying to find the quickest route to people who know about the this bed and breakfast thing.
Yeah, being a vendor, having a room in the hotel is just too convenient.
Yep. So
Yeah,
we
that's
have contact.
And being a drinker, having a having a room in the same building as the bar is very convenient.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's tough.
So I'll put in the they have on their websites. I put that in chat here. This is their website, and
Bards mentioned CAFCON. Is that right? CAFCON?
CAFCON.
Or are my eyes crossed?
Oh yes, it says CAFCON. I've never heard of CAFCON.
Yeah.
Hey.
I actually went to a new con a couple months ago called ShireCon. It's in Connecticut. It was a blast.
You have a lot of cons on the East Coast. Yep,
it was their first time doing it. It was a one-room thing. They had like maybe 150, 200 people. It was so much fun. It was. There were like 3 of us vending there. It was a great time.
Yep. So I need to. They have some cons here in the West too. So I need to. They have OrcCon and Strategicon down in LA. I guess I have to start with them. Yep. But next year will definitely be GaryCon, PaizoCon, and GenCon for me next year, and then we'll see from there.
Yes.
But
I haven't been to a GenCon since it was in Minnesota.
Yeah. But I have to announce that I'm not going to PAX Unplugged. I was supposed to go to PAX Unplugged, but that got canceled for several different reasons. So
it's funny you should say that. I literally today just canceled my hotel reservation for PAX Unplugged.
Yeah, so I had to cancel for multiple reasons. So yeah, first I'm too busy with stuff, but I would have been wonderful. But Lone Wolf also canceled their presence there, so that was the main reason to me to not go otherwise, so to speak. So that will be, but it would have been fun. But now I get to catch up on Greyhawk and Midgard and all the other stuff that I'm working on instead that weekend. So that will be good. So I can work from home. But but that, and now talking about next week, Thanksgiving. Are we going to have a show next week or not? I can go on in the afternoon and have it. But if
So you do want to do a Thursday?
I can do it Thursday. Yeah.
Well, I'm not worried about. I mean, I could too.
But we might be sitting here babbling with no. Exactly, we might sit here and have no one. So we see if we have a lot of yelling and screaming in chat that we should do it next week. Then we'll think about it. Yep. And we have to go out and announce it early if we do or not. Yep.
But for now, hey, thanks for coming on, Joe.
Oh, thanks for having me. And
yep.
I could talk for 6 more hours. So
yes. Yep.
You want me? Yep. I'll be happy to come back.
Yep. Thank you so much for coming.
I'm starting to feel a little sick. If you want to fill in for me next week.
Yep.
So thanks. This was a blast. I had a great time, and thanks for having me.
Yep. So glad you came, and thank you so much to everyone who watched. I've seen we have a lot of wonderful questions from chat, and we've seen a lot of friends in chat. So that was awesome. So thank you so much. This has been the episode 6 of the Legends and Lore show on the Greyhawk channel, and
thank you for tuning in.
Yes, exactly, and we'll be back soon.